All right, guys, listen, thank you for joining the Observe and Report podcast. We're going to get right to it. We have Kevin Starrett from the Oregon Firearms Federation. We've had quite the last couple of days here in Oregon dealing with Measure 114. Kevin, what's going on? We've had a hearing last Friday. The judge made a ruling today, and then I'm hearing that there's been another development. Kind of give everybody an update as to what happened on Friday, what you saw, and then what happened today and where we are right now.
So Friday, there was a hearing in federal court on our attempt to put a restraining order on Measure 114. The state came along with ridiculous arguments saying, it was just absolutely pathetic. The comments they were making, like gunfights only involve 2.2 rounds. That means that people don't ever actually use magazines that are over 10 rounds. The judge clearly had no grasp on the reality of firearms ownership or guns used in confrontations or anything like that. And so this morning, she issued a ruling saying there would be no temporary restraining order, that we could demonstrate that no one was being harmed, that it was unlikely that we would succeed in proving that these measures were unconstitutional, and therefore it was going to go into effect, which meant that any magazine over 10 rounds would be contraband. There'd be no more guns transferred if the police refused to do their job, and a whole host of other problems. But she did give them a stay on how long it would take to implement the permit system, because while we were in court, the lawyer for the state said, oh, this will all be up and ready to run by Thursday. And of course, the whole courtroom burst out laughing because it was absurd. It will be months at best before this is ready to go, probably longer than that. So after their lawyer made that ridiculous comment, then they came back and they wrote a letter to the judge and said, oh, that's not true, because the sheriffs and the police said it's insane, they can't do it. So they came back and said, well, it looks like they can't do it. Can we have some time? So they asked for 60 days. The judge today gave them 30 days, which of course is also completely unmanageable. So essentially, she shot down everybody's gun rights. If you have a magazine over 10 rounds, that's illegal. If you own a shotgun with a tubular magazine, that's illegal. There's no protections at all. If you do, the idea that she's going to hold a permitting system off for 30 days doesn't help anybody, because if you're in the queue waiting for a gun, 30 days isn't long enough. And if you have a gun that you've already purchased and can't take possession of, when you do go take possession of it, the dealer's not going to be able to give you the magazines that came with it. So that's what she left us with. It's a horrible decision. And then this afternoon, as we were trying to, digest this, I get a call, and it turns out that Gun Owners of America had filed in county court in Harney County, and a Harney County judge said, I'm giving you the restraining order. So he has put the measure on hold, and that measure is not going forward as of now. So it's as confusing as can be, and it's been a roller coaster. But as of now, Measure 114 is on ice.
So let me get this straight. We had a federal judge, and let me just say this, a federal judge appointed by President Trump. So for everybody that thinks that somehow your political affiliation automatically guarantees your gun rights, that is absolutely untrue. This is a federal judge that was appointed under the Trump administration that today made every attempt to take away our 2A rights. Now, explain, how is it possible for a federal judge to rule today and then a county judge to come in behind that and then make a ruling? I would just think, from my limited knowledge of government, that the federal would overrule the county. How does a county judge come in and then give us a temporary restraining order?
Well, I'll give you my best non-lawyer answer here. So, because as you know, I'm not a lawyer, but I would like to point out that the judge in Harney County who gave the restraining order to Oregonians is in fact a longtime liberal Democrat. So what do you make of that? But here's how I understand it to work. The federal judge actually didn't do anything. She didn't impose anything. She simply said, I am not going to prevent this measure from going forward. It can go forward. So there was no dictate, say, that mandated that it go forward, because as it is, it's going forward. She had the ability to stop it and just chose to do nothing. The state court took some action. They said, we're not letting it go forward. So they're not actually contradicting each other. the state court did something and the federal court did nothing. That's the best way I can explain it and understand it. And you might have viewers who will tell me I got it wrong, but I had the same question. How could a county judge overrule what a federal judge did? And in fact, he didn't overrule her. She essentially did nothing, and he took action.
So sometimes we have to be very thankful that there is a mindset here in Portland to do nothing. Sometimes that works out in our benefit. Now that we do have this temporary restraining order, how long will it be in effect?
The way I understand it, having read the Harney County judge's order, which is a lot shorter than the federal judge's order, is that he wants the parties to be back in his courtroom on December 13th, where the state will now have to explain why this is, in fact, not violating anyone's rights. But of course, the Attorney General, the state of Oregon, is determined to crush gun owners' rights, put gun dealers out of business, and destroy people's livelihoods right in time for Christmas. So they vowed they're going to appeal it directly to the Oregon Supreme Court. Once it gets above the county level into Oregon Appeals Court or Oregon Supreme Court, that's a much less friendly place for us to be. So there's no real telling what's going to happen then. It's just that for right this minute, in this time and place, we got a little bit of breathing room.
Well, I realize you're extremely busy. I'm going to let you get back to doing what you're doing. I want to ask you two more questions here. If it does go above the county court and it goes to the Oregon Supreme Court, if we find that it's in the Oregon Supreme Court, how long are we looking at for there to be some sort of determination on whether or not this is completely struck down, or if it goes into effect? What kind of timeline are we looking at with that?
I have no idea, but I will tell you this. Tomorrow morning, the Senate Judiciary Committee, the name of the committee is the Committee on the Implementation of Ballot Measure 110, which of course is old news, but they kept that name. They're having a hearing on this measure. And keep in mind that no matter what the courts do, the legislature can come in and completely change this. Now, they're not going to actually do anything until January when they're back in session. But once they're back in session, they have the ability to get rid of this measure, to change it, to alter it. So not only does that affect what happens to our court cases, because if we were successful in getting a restraining order and the legislature changed the bill, well, now we have a restraining order against a bill that doesn't exist. But their involvement could change everything. And the upside of that is, while the Oregon legislature is by its nature anti-gun, these are people who can be held accountable for what they do. There's nothing you can do to a judge. So when Karen Emmergut says, I'm taking away everybody's rights because you didn't prove your point, people have no recourse. There's no accountability. But as soon as the legislature gets involved, and they said, even the people who proposed this said it's such a piece of garbage, the legislature is going to have to clean it up. Once it's in the hands of the folks in Salem, now we have the ability to lean on those people and say, we're expecting that you do the right thing and restore our rights. So while that's still an uphill climb, now people can do something. Because at the moment, the only thing people could do was help us pay the lawyer bills. And we're very thankful for that. But I'd sure like to take this out of it, us just constantly asking for money. And now we can ask people to take action. So that it's not going to help anybody right this second, because the gun stores are in great jeopardy. But soon we may be able to reverse this crap if we can lean on legislators enough.
And I think for anyone who is outside of Oregon, this has garnered national attention, but, there's only 6 counties that carried this measure. The other, 30 counties? 30
yeah.
counties that were against this. So by and large, even though numerically this passed in Oregon, it's only by areas like Portland, Eugene, a small area of Salem that got this through. The vast majority of people that do not live in the metropolitan area do not agree with this. This does not support their view of gun rights, and this is not what they want. So, we have a situation here in Oregon where a very small number of people in one area of the state have complete control. That's great to know that if it does go to the legislature, people are going to be held accountable. And what has happened over the last couple of weeks is that the vocal block of gun owners in Oregon has probably quadrupled in size and number just because of this measure. The amount of people that are purchasing guns for the first time, the amount of people that are vocal about their 2A rights, openly vocal about this measure, is larger than anything that I've seen here since I've moved here. I'm very, very happy to see that in terms of what we might need going forward, for people to be able to lean on these representatives in the legislature. Really quickly, OregonFirearmsFederation.com, is that the website where people can donate?
It's OregonFirearms.org, OregonFirearms.org, and there's a place if people want to help us. There's a place they can contribute. There's the latest alerts. We don't have one up about this sudden change this morning or this afternoon actually, but I also want people to understand that sheriffs in this state are almost universally behind us. They've been real supportive. We have a number of them who are plaintiffs on the case and a number who've asked to be added. So law enforcement has recognized what an idiotic, impossible measure this is, and we've had tons of support from elected sheriffs. So that really tells you, what the cops actually believe about the potential for this actually doing any good, and they hate it because they've basically been handed a pile of garbage and told, you clean this up because you got to provide the permits, you got to provide the training, and they've all said it can't be done. So we're really excited to have their support.
Awesome. Kevin, listen, I hear your phone going off over there. I know people are reaching out to you, trying to get your opinion, and you've got some lawyers to talk to. You are fighting an absolutely uphill battle, but you're fighting, and we appreciate that. We will share your link again on this this episode, and try and get some more donations rolling in. People, we have to make sure that we're financially supporting this fight. Oregon's Firearms Federation, everyone else that's filing lawsuits, they are up against an absolute juggernaut of an anti-gun machine. And we have to make sure that we're able to help them stay solid and be able to fight this fight. Kevin, if there's anything else that you want to say, let us know. If not, we'll let you get out of here and get back to doing what you're doing.
Thanks very much. I really appreciate the time, Damien. You take care.
Thank you so much, sir.